Are you ready to start asking questions?
I'm ready when you guys are. It's your show. I'm here.
So I guess we'll start with, what do you consider to be your biggest accomplishment or success as superintendent?
It's a very good question. Proud of a lot of things. So first and foremost, the longevity in the job. So superintendent right now in all districts, small, large, is usually less than about 2 or 3 years. In urban school districts like JCPS across the nation, it's really less than 18 months right now. So I'm one of the 3 longest tenured superintendents in the nation of what we call the Council of the Great City Schools, which is a collection, a collaborative really of the largest 80 school districts in America. And I'm one of the 3 longest. And I think a lot of that is the challenges that we have faced, collectively in education and in society over the past 8 years. And so, I know from the very beginning of my tenure, and then coming post-pandemic and the staffing shortages that we've had, all of these challenges that have taken place with staffing shortages, and then really the attacks from Frankfurt and the federal government when it comes to social issues in schools and attacking public education. I mean, it has been a really, really long journey. So I think the thing I'm most proud of is the absolute, resiliency in what I'm doing. I do it because I love JCPS. I've been here for 30 years. But at the same time, making changes that I think were important for JCPS and making tough decisions during that time to improve the district. Because when I got in the district in 1997, and when I took over as superintendent, not much had changed in the district. It had been essentially the same. So having, during all of these crises, to still make change is something I'm proud of.
Okay, superintendents from Bullitt, Carroll, Henry, and Trumbull counties have voiced their concern over Amendment 2, with many rural counties relying solely on public schools. What are your thoughts surrounding Amendment 2 and how it could affect JCPS differently than other school districts?
Well, I will say this. I think Amendment 2, if passed or if it's voted yes on, and let's be clear, this is not a school choice amendment. This is a voucher bill is what this is. I think would be the most damaging thing to public education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky in decades. I think it would be extremely damaging to JCPS and probably even more damaging to rural districts across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And there is no question it will eventually cut into education funding. And so no matter what, we'll still have the neediest children in our community in JCPS with less funding to support those students.
In your annual evaluation from the 2023-2024 school year, you received feedback in needing improvement under human resource leadership. In response to that feedback, you said, "We need to improve not necessarily in the human resources department, but in human resources." And I think that's a lot about shortage of bus drivers and what happened on the first day of the 2023-2024 school year. What do you plan to accomplish to counter this feedback received from the district before July 1st?
Well, first and foremost, the staffing shortage is one of the 2 biggest crises in public education that is nationwide that I think is going to have to be addressed, or 10 years from now. It's a crisis now. What it will be in 10 years, if the trend continues, will be absolutely devastating to public education.
Now, our final questions are, what advice would you give to the new superintendent, and what are your plans after retiring?
Yeah, so, advice I would give is, first of all, I say this, whoever takes this job is going to have to be very, very thick-skinned. And I was good at it at times, and I was not good at it at other times. Stay off of social media. Because when things are good and you look on social media and it's a good story, okay, yeah, but at the same time, if you start looking too much, you're going to see things about you. And I'm not saying that it's not important to know what public perception and things like it, but I have a communications team, and that's what they're for. But what it does is it will cloud your decision making. If you start looking at 10 people who don't even put their name on a social media account are saying you should do this, 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 and this, okay, that's 10 people. But maybe there's 10,000 who aren't commenting that feel a different way about it. And so I just think it's important to do that. I think without a doubt, the most important thing, you have to have passion for this school district. I honestly can't see going to another large school district and being superintendent. The job's too tough to just move to a city that you really don't have roots in. I mean, I worked at Shawnee, I worked at Wagner, I worked at J-Town, I worked at Doss High School. My daughter went here. I told you my dad was a coach and teacher here. My mom was a teacher at Ballard for 20 years. So, I mean, all of these things give you ties to the community and make you care about it. So no matter who gets it, I think there's really going to have to be someone who has, whether it's internal or external, who proves their passion for doing this work and being here. And I think the most important thing, if I would say what needs to happen, is the biggest threat to large school districts is consistent turnover of leadership. So turnover can be good in ways, but it can also be threat to the district. And when it really becomes a threat, like many large cities right now, is when you have 3 or 4 superintendents in 5 years. Because it's a tough job to learn. It takes 18 to 24 months to really learn the job before you get your feet under you. And so consistent turnover is not good. So I think whoever they choose is going to have to, number one, show they have a lot of passion for this job. Number 2 is to make sure that they're going to be here, not for a decade or 8 years, but are going to be committed to this place. The other thing I would really recommend is to get into schools as much as possible. Talk to students, talk to teachers as much as you possibly can. And then the final question, what am I going to do next? So I still have a real passion for education. So I'm going to stay in the education field. I will not be I'm not saying never would I go back to being a superintendent. You know, maybe if I really miss it in 3 years and the job comes open that I'm looking for or would want, maybe I'll do that. But I really believe that I'm concerned about public education. I have a passion for public education. I have a passion for taking all kids into our public schools, not kicking them out if they don't score high enough on a test, not kicking them out if they misbehave, finding options for kids. And that's what public school does. And from a patriotic standpoint, everyone has I believe the future of our nation is dependent upon public schools, a future of our city. Everything I say that we have issues with in our community and nationally, I believe the answer is public education. So poverty, the answer is public education. Safety and crime, public education. Homelessness, I could go on and on as public education. So I have a real passion for that, and I want to continue to do that. But at the same sense, I think public education is under attack in our nation right now, and we need advocates for that. So we need to turn away from good school, bad school narrative. I am so tired of hearing that's a good school, that's a bad school. And I believe this. I believe high achieving schools can be a good school and can be a bad school. I believe low achieving schools on standardized test scores can be a good school. I should say good or bad, effective or ineffective. I've always said effective schools should be about what the adults do and the attitudes and beliefs that the adults come to the school with and how they support kids as a result of that. We don't do this in medicine. We wouldn't say a hospital is ineffective because they have more deaths in their hospital than a hospital in a wealthy area. If a hospital is dealing with gunshot wounds, cancer patients, things, they're probably going to have more challenges. We don't do that, but we do that in education where we say that's an effective school or a good or a bad school. And the intense focus on standardized testing where, and you all know this, kids aren't really trying their best on standardized tests right now. I mean, you all, my guess is you all try a lot harder, and maybe you do, but I know my daughter tried a lot harder on the AP test than she did on the KSA test, when there's very little skin in the game for students when it comes to being proficient on KSA as opposed to ACT or my AP test. And so what we're doing here is judging schools and making decisions on schools and districts based upon standardized tests, where honestly, we're begging kids to do their best on this test. And it's just not an effective way to hold schools and districts accountable. So I believe in accountability, but I also believe that we should be monitoring and holding schools accountable in a different way. And so I can't say exactly what that is, but for the rest of my career, I want to advocate for those changes in public education and really defend public education. So I don't know what that'll be yet. I'll be trying to work in policy and things like that. But, my plan for the rest of my career is to be a champion for public education.
Well, thank you. I don't think we have any
Thank
more
you.
questions, but we really
Great.
appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Really good job. Excellent job.